Hello, Patchwork Husband here. Welcome to Studio 39 in Baldock. I am, as ever, in the classroom. In this episode, we have an Easter project for you. It is traditional at Easter to give friends and loved ones chocolate eggs. Is this the show of love and affection that you're looking for, or do you think you can do better? Yes, you can. I give you the Studio 39 Easter chickens. Chocolate egg, chicken. Chocolate egg, chicken. Now there's a little frisson of jeopardy in this project, because will those chocolate eggs be inside the chickens at the end of the project, or will they be inside the Patchwork Husband? Time will tell. This is intended to be a sew-along project. I'd love it if you were to do it with me. Remember, with YouTube you can press pause and rewind to your heart's content. So have a go. It's for all skill levels. Many of these Easter chickens have been made in the classroom here. They are for all skill levels. I'm confident that even me, at the skill level of one scant level above absolutely hopeless, can do it. I'm confident I can do it. I'm confident you can do it. In other news, PH Cam is now in well-earned retirement at the bottom of the camera bag amongst the toffee papers and fluff, and has been replaced by PH Cam 2. It's got more pixels, it's got more frames, it's got more colours, it's got more megabits per second. It's superior in every regard. It said on the box that it's suitable for vloggers. Is that what I do? I think it is. Nobody can say the Patchwork Husband isn't down with the kids. Or is that pronounced vlogger? Anyway, it comes with this remote control, which means that I can work it myself. Unfortunately, that has meant I've had to demote the best boy to chief tea maker. Bit awkward. I've also upgraded my video production software. So what's this? Some sort of jingle coming? What do you think? Too much? That literally took me hours to do, but then you've got to find some way to pass the time during lockdown. On with the Easter chickens. Let's start by running through the ingredients for our Easter chicken project. First of all, we've got two 5-inch squares of contrasting fabric. We're going to make the body out of that. We've got a 3 1/4 inch square and a 3 3/4 inch square of contrasting fabric to make the tail. We've got some red felt. You'll need a piece 2 by 3 inches approximately. We're going to make the cocks, the comb and the eyes from that. We need some yellow or orange felt at your discretion, a piece 2 by 2 to make the beak, a strip of fabric 12 inches by 1.5 inches to make the binding, a piece of fabric 10 inches by 6 inches to make the lining, and a piece of wadding 10 inches by 6 inches. I've also laid out the tools that I'm going to use. We've got an ordinary domestic hole punch for making the eyes out of the felt, pins, and of course my favourite fabric clips, which I prefer to use, but if I have to use pins, I'll use pins. We've got 505 adhesive, a rotary cutter, some scissors, a creasing folding tool, a fabric glue stick, an ordinary domestic pencil which has been sharpened very sharp, so we need a pencil sharpener, and of course we've got a square and a rule. We've also got some spare needles for the sewing machine, a standard 1/4 inch seam guide foot, and a clear open-toed foot. So before we fire up the sewing machine, I'm going to give you a preview of the 8 steps that we're going to follow to make our Easter chickens. Step 1, we're going to mark up our 5-inch squares. Step 2, we're going to sew them together and cut them into half square triangles. Step 3, we're going to press them flat, trim them exactly to size and attach the comb. Step 4, we're going to sew our 2 squares together and layer them up with the wadding and the lining. Step 5, we're going to do the quilting and trim it exactly to size. Step 6, we're going to make the tail. Step 7, attach the tail, attach the beak, and step 8, do the binding. Job done. Step 1, mark up the 5-inch squares. Now we've got some samples pinned up to the wall here. Let's pull them down and have a closer look. If I come and show you this close up on the camera, you can see we've got 3 lines. We've got a line running from corner to corner. That's going to be the centre line, and then we've got a line either side of it exactly a 1/4 of an inch from it. So those are going to be the 1/4 inch seam allowances. So let's show you how we mark that up. This is much easier if you have a quilting rule. If I hold one up, I can explain why that is. This is a standard quilter's rule, and you can see here there's a dotted line a 1/4 of an inch from the edge, a dotted line a 1/4 of an inch from that edge, a dotted line a 1/4 of an inch from that edge. That makes it much easier to mark up your seam allowance. So let's go ahead and mark our 5-inch square. Basically what we're doing here is turning it into half square triangles. So the first line, you need to get your ruler exactly on the corners, and using your common garden pencil, don't press too hard because you'll damage the fabric. Just drag it along the fabric. It's best to operate the pencil at a slight angle so that it goes right into the ruler, so that you draw your line accurately. For good measure, I'm going to repeat the line in the opposite direction. So there's my line running corner to corner. Using my ruler, I can put the dotted line on the line that I've just drawn and draw another line down the edge of the ruler. And I'll do that in both directions as well. And for my own convenience, I'm just going to spin it round so that I can do it the same way again. I put my dotted line on the centre line that I first drew, and then there's my line, a 1/4 of an inch from it. So there it is. Step 1 complete. Now you might be wondering why it is that we're going to be sewing the 2 squares together before we cut them into half square triangles. Well, there's quite a good reason for that. We're sewing on the bias, which is to say we're going diagonally through the fabric, and it tends to stretch. If we were to cut it into half square triangles and then sew the seam, we'd only have a 1/4 of an inch between the seam and the edge of the fabric. It will stretch if you do that. So what we're going to do is sew the seams first so that we've got plenty of fabric supporting either side of the seam, then we cut it into our half square triangles. To that end, I've pinned the 2 pieces of fabric together face to face, exactly in line with each other. You can't see any of the square underneath, and now I'm going to sew those 2 seams. There, that's beautiful, as Bernard Matthews might say, sticking with the poultry theme. I've sewn both my seams now. I'm going to remove the pins, and then I can cut down the centre line to create my 2 half square triangles. Using my rotary cutter and my mat. And there we are. that is step 2 complete. So now we're on step 3, and the first thing we have to do is true up the squares. Now it's very important that the square is true to the 45-degree angle running corner to corner. So we're going to be exploiting the 45-degree angle on the rule so that we can square these up in such a way that the diagonal there is truly corner to corner. I need to end up with a 4.5 inch square. So what I'm going to do is line up my 45-degree line with the seam between the two fabrics so that I've got the absolute minimum that I can cut off. That will true up the first side, then I can spin it round and get it down to the 4.5 inches that I'm looking for. I've put this on a small board so that after I've done the first cut I can simply turn the board round to do the second cut without disrupting my rule. So here we go, cut 1. Turn the board round. Cut 2. So now I can get my 4.5 inches. So once again, I'm going to line up the 45 degrees and I'm looking for 4.5 inches, which is helpfully marked on the rule. So I've got the 4.5 inch line on my newly cut edges. So cut 3. Spin the board round. And cut 4. And I now have a perfect 4.5 inch square. I need to make a comb out of red felt, and to do this I'm going to make a cardboard template in case I want to make any more in the future. So I've drawn a rectangle 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. This is, I've grabbed the sample off the wall, this is the shape that I'm trying to achieve. So I'm going to draw something a bit like that with my pen. I think that'll do me, so I'm now going to cut that out. Use it to draw round to mark a piece of felt and cut the piece of felt out. Now we have to sew the two halves together. The black bit's going to represent the wings and the light bit's going to be the body breast. First of all we have to position the comb. Now I need this to be just a little more than 1/4 inch from the corner. So that's about the right spot there. I'm going to use this flat pin just to hold that in position. Okay, that's that. And then the other square has to go precisely on top of the first one. And then I can pin those together to hold it while I sew them together. So there's one pin. Pin there. And one in the middle for good luck. You can see I've got them well out of the way of where I'm going to be doing the sewing. So now I can stitch that. So I can give this a sew now. I'm going to anchor it at both ends, which means I'm going to go forward, back a bit, and then forward again, and repeat that at the other end as well. So I've got my 1/4 inch foot on. here we go. I've got the machine on very slow. 1, 2, 3 stitches, and then we hold the reverse. 1, 2, 3, and then we go forward again. Let's take the pins out and see what we've got. Looks pretty good to me. We're motoring up to step 4. We're going to layer up 505 adhesive, paper to stop getting it everywhere, little spray. That's the right side, that's the back, so back goes on to the wadding. There. Lovely. Where'd I put my glue? Oh, I'll use this one. I missed a bit. There we go. And the top. Will go on there. Don't need my manky paper anymore. So we're ready now to trim it and quilt it. Already we've reached step 5. So now we're going to do a little bit of quilting. Now my supervisor has done a sample and marked up the root of our sew line. So I'll bring that a bit closer to the camera. So I can show you exactly how we're going to do this. Helpfully, we've got start written in the top left hand corner, so we're going to go down there to the bottom middle, up to the corner, down the edge as close to the edge as we can get, diagonally up to the middle of the top, diagonally down to the bottom corner, and up the side as close as we can get. So I'll go and sew that now. First thing I've done is secure the comb so that it's out of the way from where I'm going to sew. We could call that a comb over. Oh dear. Now I have to mark where I'm going to sew diagonally into the middle because there's no seam to follow. So I'm going to use my rule and my Hera marker, corner to corner, and mark my sew line, and the same on the other side, corner to corner. And I'm going to be starting here. I've got my favourite variegated thread in the machine. I've got a clear open-toed foot. So let's do some quilting. Right, I can stop there. Where am I going now? I'm going up the other line that I've just marked. So I'm going to lift the foot but leave the needle in. Get my head around which way to twist it. Needle down again. Here comes the second line. Now I'm just going to pause before I get to the end to evaluate where I'm going next. I'm going down that side. So I'm going to have to turn it anti-clockwise when I get to the bottom. So foot up. Turn it round, foot down, and I'm going to sew as close to the edge as I can. So where am I going next? I'm going across, up the seam. So I think we can get one more stitch in there. Up, foot down, and so straight along the seam. I think I'm going up the edge now, back to my start. Yes, I am. So foot up, turn that round. Forgive the slight note of surprise in my voice. Actually, I'm going to put one more stitch in there. Oh, that's made my brain ache. But I think that's mission accomplished. On to the next step. Cut that to size just by cutting around the quilted bit. That's all good. Now I've got to make the beak. This is very straightforward. We just need a triangle that is 1.5 inches on all 3 sides. I will use a pencil to mark the felt. And just cut that out. If, as we are, you're using acrylic felt, you need to be careful when you press it because it has a tendency to melt. While we're on the felt, we also need a piece of felt shaped like that to form the wattle. We have to make the tail now, so we're up to step 6. This is made from the 2 smaller squares. We had one at 3 1/4 and one at 3 3/4, and it's done by folding the square in half, then bringing the corners in so that you get a shape like that. Now we want this to be nice and crisp, so I'm going to do this properly using the ironing board to press each fold as I go, and then we can attach it to the chicken. So I've got my 2 squares folded to form the tail, and I've pinned them together. I'm going to yank the sample off the wall so we can have a look at what happens next. So you can see here we're pinning it using 4 pins, so I'm going to do that now. It's going to have the smaller one towards the good side of the fabric, so that we've got the larger one uppermost. And then I need to pin that into position. Make sure I've got the point right on the seam. There's quite a few layers to get through now. Let's hope one of them's not my thumb. When I look closely at what I've done, I wasn't satisfied with it. I can't pin through that number of layers without the upper tail moving slightly. So I'm going to actually do it in 2 goes. So we'll put the smaller one on first, which just needs the 1 pin. And then when I've sewn that on, I'll pin the second one on and sew that. So that's what I'm going to do. Incidentally, I've also got to put the wattle just under the beak. So I'll do that as well. Okay, there's the first one. First one on, second one on now. I did find when I sewed the first one that just temporarily sticking a pin in right near the beginning when you start it helps it to stop rucking up in that awkward little corner. So I've done the same again. It's held on with 3 pins plus that one at the start of where I'm going to sew to help me get it started. This time I'm going to try and sew about 3/16 of an inch from the edge, so it's just slightly further from the edge than the previous one. Wish me luck. I think that's not too bad. Let's have a look. There we go. So, that will do nicely. What's next on the agenda? Sewing the front together, I think. So let me prepare for that, take a little bit of advice, and then I'll have a go at that. I've taken advice and I couldn't have been more wrong. We now are going to do the binding. So here's my piece of fabric for the binding, folded in half to find the centre. Line that fold you've just made with the centre line. I've got my 1/4 inch foot on the sewing machine. I just need to pin this and then sew along there. So I'll do that now. So here we go. This is a large number of layers. Now we're going to get to the tail. Oh, the little machine's doing well. Pins out. Quite smart. I think we probably give it a press now. I'm not sure. Once again, I'll take advice from the boss. So let me run through the plan. The first thing I'm going to do is trim these so that they're ending 1/2 inch from the edge of the fabric. Then we can fold that under so that we don't have a raw edge. Then we're going to fold the binding over once to encapsulate the raw edge, and over a second time, making sure that it goes beyond the stitch line where we stitched it on from the front. I can then pin that in place, turn it over and stitch close up to my original stitch line where I sewed the binding on. This, I'm reliably informed, is called in the ditch. So that's what I'll do now. So we're ready to do our penultimate bit of sewing. The binding's been pinned in place. We've made sure that this side comes ever so slightly higher than this side. We've done our best to neaten up the corners. So I'll give this a sew. We've got an open-toed clear foot on the machine. And I'm going to be sewing, as we said, in the ditch. So we'll just do a couple of stitches forward. Back a bit. And forward again. Now we're coming up to the tail, where the fabric all gets a little bit thick. So fingers crossed. Okay. Let's get that out and have a look. I'll go with that. So on to the final step. I'm ready now to do the final piece of sewing. Now, you could pin these 2 bits of felt on, but I'm a bit nervous of pins where I'm trying to sew because I'm worried about breaking the needle, because I'm not very good at this stuff. The boss, however, has tacked it on for me, so there's a relief. Obviously, I can't do that myself because I can't be trusted with a hand needle, as we've established. We've also folded over the comb to make sure that that doesn't get caught up when we sew it up. So now all I've got to do is fold it back on itself, make sure that it's exactly lined up, pin it, and then I'm going to sew round using my 1/4 inch foot to give me a 1/4 inch seam. So I'll pin it and sew it. Pinned. Oh my word, this is thick. I'm going to do this in 2 goes. Oh dear, this last bit's very thick. We'll call that sewn. So pins out. And I just have to cut the corner off before I turn it out the right way so that the corner sits out nicely. So I'll do that. So that's the sewing complete. I hope you can see I've cut the corners off there to make it easier to get it to fold out the right way, which I'm now going to do, the big reveal. Poor old felt's a bit creased, but it will recover. I'm just using my foldery pokery thing to push the corners out. The Studio 39 chicken is getting very close now. So to finish it off, we just have to make some eyes. I've got my hole punch, I've got a scrap of felt. I'll punch a couple of pieces out. There we go, 2 felt eyes. You could use a little button if you wanted. You could even buy some of those goggle eyes that you can stick on, but I'm quite happy with my felt eyes. So I've stuck a pin through to where I think I want to put them. Let's just offer them up. That one's too low. What do we think of that? I think that'll do the trick. So, got my fabric glue stick. I can feel those pressing up against each other, so eyes on. Eyes on for a full house. There we have it. The Studio 39 Easter chicken is complete. turn that off. I'm not quite ready. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and that you've been able to make an Easter chicken along with me. I'm sure you're dying to know the egg score. So let's have a look. 2 chocolate eggs in chicken 1, 1 chocolate egg in chicken 2. So it's chickens 3, Patchwork Husband none. I hope you've been diverted by this video. If you have, please press the like or the subscribe button, or even press the share button and send it to your friends. Patchwork Husband, over and out. By the way, did you know you can not only subscribe to a YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button, you can click on the channel logo to open the channel page and then click on videos, and all the videos for that channel are there, so you need never miss a Patchwork Husband video again.